Welcome back, everyone, to another incredible episode of Chat with Dan here. For today, what can I say? We are starting an epic, super badass week to be chatting with the amazing, the badass, the superstar, the legendary, the one and only Lauren. Lauren, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm super excited to be here and answer all your questions.
There you go. What better way, right? Like, what better way to starting up epic with someone as epic as you? Just saying, you know.
Thank you so much.
Now, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, follow, helps a lot. But also, in the description below, you're going to find all of Lauren's social media. Let's follow her and let's discover why she's super badass. Now, without further more, let's jump in here. So I want to start this whole conversation by throwing out the first question, which is, what initially drew you to acting? Was there like a specific moment or performance that solidified your passion for it?
Yeah, I actually owe my acting career to my kindergarten teacher. I was in kindergarten, and I guess the way I was like behaving in the class or whatever I was doing, my kindergarten teacher told my parents, like, you need to send this girl off to an art school. I don't think at the time they took it very seriously because, I was 4. And I just kind of continued my, elementary school journey. And, in grade 4, grade 5, grade 6, I was performing in school plays and I really loved it. So then when I was in grade 6, I actually did audition for an art school. And I feel like it was that moment when I kind of got that letter that I got into an art school that I started thinking like, oh, like maybe I can be an actor. And then while I was at that art school, I had an agent came in as kind of like a guest artist to talk to the drama class. And I remember like so vividly, I was just sitting there listening to this agent talk. And I was like, wait, I can make a living out of being in plays and doing all this stuff. Like as a kid, I was just totally enamored by this idea of just doing what I was doing in school as a career. And I think that's kind of what sparked kind of my journey into acting. And then it eventually evolved into producing. And hopefully in the next couple of years, it will turn into directing. So I've kind of done a bunch of stuff.
There you go. So you're basically doing everything.
I'm trying.
There you go. That's like badass level 5.
Thank you.
There you go. And it's interesting, right? That sometimes it just takes like one thing to kind of connect with everything in your head and be like, you know what, this might be a good way, for me to follow, basically. Yeah, that's cool. And before that, basically during the whole, like on your first steps of acting, was there something else you were pursuing, or the more you were involved into acting, the more you were like, you know what, no, this is my way of, this is where I want to go, basically?
I think for me, it's really interesting. I've always, as long as I could remember, like I've just wanted a career in the entertainment industry. Like I have memories of, maybe being 10 or 12 years old and practicing what I would say on a talk show one day. And yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but it just feels like this is kind of always what I wanted to do. I feel like there was a time, my parents kind of were not necessarily pushing me away from the arts, but just being like, if there's anything else you would want to do, what would it be? So there was a time that I was thinking I was going to be a real estate agent, but like my dream was always I was going to be like a real estate agent actor. Like there was always actor in the scenario. And I think it's kind of interesting how my career kind of evolved, because right now at the current place, I'm doing more producing than I am acting, but I'm still auditioning. It's still in the back of my mind. So when I talk about kind of the choices that I've made in my career, I've always said that like acting is my passion. It's the thing that like makes my soul happy. And I've kind of found producing as more of like a day job, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah, totally. It's interesting, right? That, for example, like for your parents, and I think with mine as well, because they are from a totally different generation. When you tell them about having being on the arts as a living was like for them something like, like something was not clicking because, they were basically raised in a different era, let's say, as for now. I mean, yeah, we it happens sometimes every now and then, but we will see that at least now it's kind of a little bit more open, when you want to say that you want to focus on the arts, that has like a more, what's the word that I'm trying to look for here? I would say like acceptance somehow, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, it's great that on your end you were like, this is it, you went for it. And I mean, look at you now. You're doing like a lot of cool stuff. That's pretty badass.
Thank you.
What do you think that the 10, like what do you think that the 12-year version of yourself would say, would think about you right now?
I think the 12-year-old version of myself would be very impressed. But I also think that she would be very surprised that I ended up in like producing and doing some stuff behind the camera. Like I have dreams of starting my own production company, and I have totally fallen in love with that side of things as well. So yeah, I think she would be impressed. I think she would be surprised. And probably really proud.
There you go. I like it. I like it. And so as an actor, you often, had to inhabit the lives of various characters. So how do you approach stepping into a new role? And what techniques do you use to make that character feel authentic?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like the what I do when I'm like auditioning versus let's say when I've booked a role is a little bit different. I find that when I've booked a role, I do a lot more in terms of kind of like to get me in that headspace. I'll create like a playlist that the character will listen to and like listen to that as I walk around the street, or just kind of think about these kind of more abstract questions like, what's this character's favorite food? Like just really kind of build that history. And I feel like when I'm, preparing for an audition, it's a little bit more like just kind of tied to the theme because I don't have the full script a lot of the times. So, this question of how do you do something authentically, I think it really comes down to listening. I remember earlier on as an actor, this word like authentic was all like just kind of drove me a little bit crazy because I'm just like, how do you be authentic when I'm putting on a character per se? And then I had an acting coach kind of explain that like as humans, like we're constantly making opinions about things. So it's like, to live authentically in a scene, it's just about, being in a scene with your person or your scene partner, hearing what they're saying and making opinions about what they're saying based on the background of your character, right? So it's like, maybe I'm in a scene with somebody and they're telling me that their favorite color is purple. And Lauren, as a person, loves the color purple. But let's say I was playing a character that hated the color purple. That would be my opinion of what they said. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, at the end, you want to make it. Yeah, I mean, at the end, even though that, what I'm trying to say here is that at the end, you're basically the instrument for the character.
Yes.
There you go. I love it. And this whole process, I find it very cool and interesting when you're about to portray someone that, yeah, well, perhaps most of the times would be totally opposite from you. But isn't that interesting? Like knowing, I mean, I think at the end, right, it gives you like the opportunity to discover more about others people's lives somehow, and at the same time helps you to understand more about how the whole, like how society sometimes is, right?
I think one of the things that like drew me to acting is like being able to step in somebody else's like the shoes of somebody else who's not me at all. And I think, throughout my career, it's led to like a lot of really cool kind of like research opportunities of just kind of like, researching kind of different things and learning a lot. So yeah.
I like it. That is cool. That is even like more badass. And tell me, so once you have the whole character, you have it prepared, you're good to go. Tell me, do you have like any ritual or routine to get into character? And do you have, I don't know, like any pre-show ritual that kind of, that kind of focus you to be like, I'm ready to go. Let's do it.
I think something that I like to do a lot is when I work a lot in film, so a lot of times it's like the scenes are all mashed up, like you're not doing a show from kind of beginning to end. So again, something that I learned from an acting coach was kind of just like thinking about that moment before to really kind of like ground you in, when they call action, just kind of really thinking about what's been going on to like lead up to this point. And another thing that I learned too is like when you're in a scene, like what is that want that you're going after as that character, and what are your intentions, and just like, really go for it.
Okay, okay. And tell me how, yeah, like how you handle the whole. So you know that can be when you're in this process of creating a character to actually present it, sometimes might be like a little bit of emotionally demanding, right? So how do you maintain a balance between fully immersing yourself in a role and at the same time taking care of your mental and emotional well-being?
That's a great question. I think it comes down to there's like so many elements in that. Like I think, if you're doing an emotionally um like demanding scene, like the first step is making sure that like you feel kind of safe with your collaborators. So that's creating a relationship with your director where it's just like, feeling supported, and that's really important along with like your co-stars as well. And then I think also a big part of that too is like almost something that I've done before is like having like a post set kind of like ritual. And it's a little silly, but mine is just like always going for ice cream. Like if I've had like a really particularly tough day on set, like no matter what time it is, I'm gonna find myself some ice cream. And it's just kind of like that one little treat that I kind of give myself to almost like reward myself for my like hard day or emotionally demanding day.
Hmm, I'll take it. What flavor?
I'm a big fan of mint chocolate chip.
That's even like more badass. That is cool. That is cool. Okay. And now that you mentioned, like the whole working closely with the directors and everything, tell me like how like yeah, like how the whole process with yeah, so let's say that you were in this process, right, of creating a character or to play on a specific scene. So can you share like an experience where collaboration led to unexpected creative breakthroughs or insights?
Yeah, I'd say one of the most kind of like memorable experience I've ever had on set was one of the first short films I ever did. So I did a film called Bosniak. It was a student film, and in the film, I was speaking a language that I didn't know how to speak. So the director had sent me like these recordings of the lines. And so when I was learning the lines, like it was just this really interesting experience for me because I didn't like I knew what I was saying, but there was so much thought around like just making sure that I was kind of like getting the pronunciation right. And the director and I kind of had a lot of talks about like the emotional stuff that was going on. I was also like very new to acting. So I just remember being like so nervous and all of this stuff, but I just felt really supported by the director and even just like the rest of the crew and had the best time. And I look back on that short and it's like one of my favorite performances to date. And it was like 10 years ago. So
Wow.
um yeah, I really, and I think like today it still was one of the most like challenging ones that I did because like I was so new to the craft. I had no idea what I was saying. Well, I did, but I don't know if that makes sense of like I just it's different to perform like in a different language and like one that you don't really understand. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. And what are some of the changes that you have, yeah, that you have saw since in the whole, acting industry and in the entertainment industry as well, since you started until this day?
That's a great question too. You have so many great questions, Dan.
Thank you.
Um, I think there's been a lot of change in the industry. Like I think one of the biggest things we've seen is just like how much more like diverse things are. Like how much like and I also feel like there's been a change a little bit in like the beauty standard and kind of like what is like considered like who is considered like a star, like a leading, you know, role. I remember because I got into things like I signed with my first agent when I was like 16. And I remember feeling very like attached to like, you know, I had to have like long hair and I had to present as like this like girl next door. And like that was like my kind of like niche. And, you know, during this time I was kind of, you know, dealing with like I really want to cut my hair short. And, you know, I had this, I wanted to kind of like come into like this queer identity that I just felt like, oh, like if I did any of that stuff, like you know, it would affect me being able to book roles or do anything like that. And I remember during the pandemic, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to cut my hair. I have like an undercut and I've wanted an undercut since I was 12. And I was like, I'm just going to do it. And then what happened is like when the industry opened up after that, I just ended up getting like tons of roles for these really interesting, cool queer characters. And it was such like an amazing, awesome experience. And I didn't see that representation when I got into the industry. So I think that's why I felt like I couldn't have this kind of like undercut. And I recently cut all of my hair off, and it's just like it sounds a little, I don't know. I don't want to say like superficial, just kind of like talking about it, but it really was something that like really affected me as a young performer. So it's really nice to see the change and just like, you know, all of the different opportunities being offered. And even if you think about like that story that I just told about, you know, playing a character, I feel like now that role would have gone to somebody who authentically kind of knew the language. And there's just so much like more consideration going out to, you know, yes, okay, the profession is acting, but like let's connect with actors that, you know, either have lived experience or, you know, connect in this role in a different way, which I think is really beautiful and great.
Yeah, totally, totally. Yeah, let me just tell you that you look badass.
Thank you.
Just saying. Yeah, but yeah, you know, it's. I was having this conversation actually a couple of minutes ago, and we were talking about, you know, kind of the whole inclusion, you know, diversity, like and all of that. And one of the things that I was saying is that at the end, you know, if you are able to, what's the word here? Yeah, if you're able to perform to actually get the job done, if you're talented as well, you know, you got the proper training and everything. At the end, you know, who cares where you're from, what you believe, you know, like all of that stuff. At the end, if you're able to present the character in the most epic way as possible, people are gonna like it and people are gonna enjoy it and people are actually gonna, you know, enjoy. You're actually gonna feel connected to it, you know, regardless of some type of a stereotype that even till this day the whole industry has. So it's great that you were like, I'm just gonna do my thing, and here we are. So
Thank you.
yeah, that's pretty cool. That's like super badass. I'm loving it. And like, yeah, like what impact do you think social media has had on actors and their careers?
Oh, this is an interesting question. I think social media is good for a lot of things, but I also think it has like it's a negative for a lot of things as well. I think it's just I think social media, like too much social media is just bad for your mental health. Like I just think, you know, and I'm guilty of this as well. It's like, you know, let's say I audition for a role and it's like the first thing I do is like I look up the social media of, you know, the actor that booked it. And it's kind of like I'm looking at what they did and all this stuff. And I'm just like, I don't think like, you know, 30, 40 years ago, that was a thing in the same kind of sense. Like I didn't have this like I don't think people had this like immediate access to everybody in terms of like, you know, who booked what and just kind of that like comparing, I feel like can be a little tough and just going back on kind of like the mental health aspect of things, just like as I kind of got further along in my career, I had to learn to kind of stop that. And I also think too, like the social media thing is tough because it's it's turned into a little bit of like a numbers game in the sense of like, you know, your social media presence and your social media following can impact like if you're going to book something, in the sense of like, if you are an actor with, 1 million followers and you're going up against, let's say, an actor with, 400 followers. Even though obviously like talent and, who's right for the role is a big part of casting, I feel like there also is this aspect of like, at the end of the day, it's, we're the content is being produced that needs an audience. So, like, when I put my producer brain on, I'm just like, I would rather cast the actor with 1 million followers because then when I release my content, I have access to an audience of 1 million people. So,
Hmm.
I think in that case, it's been like not necessarily like negative, but it's just tough because now it's like as an actor, it's not just about developing your craft, but I think there's also this element of developing a social media presence as well. And I will say though, like I think there are actors that can make a career and not have a social media presence, and that's fine. But it's now I feel like social media has now become a tool for actors to kind of like put them on the map per se. Um, and I feel like if you don't kind of manage that well, like it can kind of maybe get in the way of developing your craft because you're focused on maybe developing your presence or developing your audience, which are all important things. But just going back to your initial point of like, if you have what casting and the director and the producers see, you can book a role regardless of how many followers you have.
Hmm. I mean, it's so interesting that, I mean, every now and then I will have this conversation. For example, let's say that I will find an actor who has 200 or 400 followers in this case, and sometimes have denied an interview because they're like I don't have. I mean, they will be telling me like I don't have enough social exposure, so I don't think much people would be interested in that. Usually when they tell me that, I will always respond like, who cares? I do
Yeah,
think that every story deserves to be told, and who knows, you can get inspired from someone who has 50,000 followers as for someone who has 10. You know what I mean? That it
exactly.
doesn't. So yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a shame that it become like this. Like followers have become like a currency. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That depending on that, you will be able to obtain this, and that. Which at the end of the day, I mean, as I was saying, I mean, I don't care if someone has 10 followers and someone has 50,000. I mean, at the end, both stories can be super interesting, and you can get, you can get inspired to it. So yeah, it's a shame that some people it actually hit them in your whole mind state, and it's just crazy sometimes.
Definitely.
Yeah. But as I said here, I mean, and right. So moving on here like a little bit, tell me, like actors, often have to adapt to different genres or and styles of performance. So is there a particular genre or style that you haven't explored yet, but you would love to try at any moment?
I really want to do like a horror film. I would love to, I don't know. I don't know if I haven't decided yet if I want to I think I kind of want to be like the demon or scary thing that's kind of like chasing people around. Earlier on in my career, I had a lot of experience doing docudramas. So I've played ghosts and that kind of stuff, but it was in like very small roles. So I feel like getting the chance to, be some kind of creepy demon would be kind of fun. I also haven't had a lot of experience doing comedic roles. So I think that would also be a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, I like it. Once I interview an actress who is also a stunt performer, she basically do like a lot of yeah, like a lot of motion capture and even a lot of creature work. So she would play like the demon, and things like that in horror films. And she was telling me that it was kind of funny because sometimes you will walk on set and you will see like the demon, or the
Yeah.
monster full on costume will be scrolling on Instagram or having a coffee. You know what I
That's
mean? Like
very
how,
cool. Yeah.
like a lot of times, like people on set will be like, "What is going on here?" You see like this monster who is about to perform this very, intense chasing scene or whatever, and minutes after or minutes before, you will see them with, scrolling with their phone or just cracking jokes or be like, hey, what are we gonna have for lunch? You know?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's great. And also they have told me that those who have played villains or like on horror films, that it is super fun. That because it is expected for you to go all out and do all of this kind of crazy stuff here and there. It's it's fun. It's super, yeah, it's super interesting, and yeah, so that's pretty cool. I mean, so who knows? So maybe next time you will be performing in this horror film. We'll see.
And I'll say I'll manifested it. I manifested it when I was chatting with Dan. So
There you go. And next time you are full on costume as a demon and you're sharing a reel on Instagram, and you will be like, this is happening now.
yeah, exactly.
I like it. And tell me, like yeah, like reflecting on your own career, how have you adapted to this industry kind of changes that has happened since you started until right now? And what advice would you give to aspiring actors who are kind of navigating on the same things that perhaps you were back then?
I think one of the biggest changes that's happened is just like the auditioning process. So, prior to COVID, you were in a room with a casting director. Um, and I haven't had an in-person audition since 2018. So everything's kind of shifted over to self-tapes. And I feel like the thing is with self-tapes is you kind of have the luxury of doing it as many times as you want and trying to get it just right. And so I've kind of tried to challenge myself to like, I give myself like 4 takes max to do a self tape. Because the reality is like when you step on set, you really don't have tons of time. You have to get, 6 pages in a day. There's so many different shots and so many different setups. So, you really have to kind of develop your craft to a point where you can nail it pretty quickly. And I feel like actors getting into it now and, getting that chance to do that audition, 10, 11 times, it's actually, my opinion is that it's more detrimental because when I was developing my craft as an actor, I had one shot in that audition room. So I think that's a big change that's maybe happened to, since when I started versus kind of stuff that's happening now. So yeah, I feel like that would be my advice to actors getting into it now is when you have that opportunity to do that self tape, try to limit yourself to like 4 takes because you can go kind of crazy nitpicking and trying to do things over and over and over again. And that's just not the reality of when you're on set. So try to kind of develop that craft so you can kind of nail that performance that you want in, a couple tries.
Hmm. Okay. I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll tell you what, if I ever become an actor, if at some point I win something or write my memoirs or whatever, I'll be mentioning you in my thank you speech.
Oh, thank you.
This is great. And yeah, and like, what do you think that, yeah, like based on, like your whole experience and yeah, what do you think that are some of the still challenges challenges that new actors will still be facing till this day?
Um, I still think there's quite a high barrier to entry to becoming an actor. Like, you have to pay for headshots, pay for acting classes, find an acting coach, find an agent. Like it's not an easy field to just kind of want to start one day. Because I think, it's costly. Like, you have to um, have a demo reel. And so a lot of early actors end up taking free jobs on student films and stuff like that. And it's tough, right? So I think that I would love to see a world where maybe there's a way that kind of barrier to entry is lower because I think we would see some really amazing talent because I feel like there's tons of talent out there that are probably passionate about acting, but just because of the circumstances, like they can't take free work or, they don't have the funds to invest $1,000 into a headshot session or something like that. So,
Mhm.
Yeah, does that answer your question?
Perfectly. I like it. Super badass. And moving, yeah, like moving on here a little bit and kind of yeah, lighten things up like a little bit, let's say. If you were on a stranded, yeah, yeah, if you were stranded on a desert island and could only bring three movies to watch for the rest of your life, what would they be?
Oh, that's a tough question, and it's one that I've been kind of thinking about for a couple days. I would say for sure I would bring A Beautiful Mind. It's one of my favorite
Mm-hmm.
movies of all time, and I can watch that movie over and over and over again. I think I'd also bring My Fair Lady because even though it's a little outdated, I feel like that is the film that made me kind of really want to get into acting. Like there was something when I first watched it about like Audrey Hepburn, just watching Audrey Hepburn's kind of character transform over the course of the movie. I was just like really intrigued by that, and I thought that was really cool that in this film she played like two different characters basically. And then for a third film, I'm trying to think, maybe Split. Um, I really liked that one. So yeah, I think those would be my three films that I would watch over and over again.
I like it. Beautiful Mind is with Russell Crowe, right?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the one that he's basically a genius, and then he was having, there's that one, right? He was having visions, and then
Yes,
like all of the,
yeah, yeah. It's based on a mathematician who was a
hmm
schizophrenic. So
like those type of films, whenever they will portray it, on a specific type of, yeah, like on a specific type of, like what's the word here? Um, I just forgot it. I just went blank. No. Okay, I got it. Yeah, like like whenever those type of films in which they will talk a little bit about how the schizophrenic person might live, your like those type of things that of health and mind issues. Whenever they touch like a little bit to it, even though that perhaps is not like the main thing of the whole film or play or TV show, but if sometimes like whenever they are touching like pieces of how an actual person who is suffering from that lives, I find that amazing because then you somehow, I mean, at least to me, I mean, you get like this empathy for them. You'd be like, you know what? There's people out there who are struggling with things that our minds sometimes can't even comprehend, but it's I do think that it would be great if they can manage to kind of put more like to talk more about it. I do think that at the end of the day, films are kind of the space to talk about specific topics that the regular audience wouldn't want to for a specific reason. So and with films you get the chance to they get the chance to talk about it and give us the audience to either feel more interested about it or to kind of create our own mindset on how we think about like you know what I mean about that. So
yeah, I think
yeah.
I think film is as a tool can be incredibly impactful. And I think kind of what you're talking about is being able to like empathize for people in different situations that, you don't necessarily relate to. So, I feel like in the same way that an actor can step into, other people's shoes, audience members can also kind of be immersed in this world that they might not know anything about. And I feel like on the topic of mental health films, like it's definitely something that I'm incredibly interested in. Like, I recently received a bipolar 2 diagnosis last year, and it kind of changed my whole world a little bit. So since receiving that diagnosis, I've really thought about like the kinds of stories that I want to tell. And I just feel like, folks that I've met through kind of my own mental health journey, there's like so much strength within, everybody that's kind of navigating their own healing journey. And I feel like, the more we talk about that kind of stuff, like the less stigmatized it can be.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I once played a video game that they were advising you for you to play it with headphones because it was kind of like well it basically what they were trying to well no they will be putting elements on what a person with psychosis will experience like
Mm.
hearing voices, like hearing multiple or even a lot of voices in your head, like having arguments with each other and things like that. So when you have the headphones on it, you kind of have like so you can taste like a little bit of the experience to it. And as I said here, I mean, it's great when they're able to talk about those type of topics and to put them in either in a project because it gets the attention. I mean, at least it does to me to be like, you know what, I want to know more about it. I want to kind of know like a little bit about that because I mean, even till this day, it's crazy that sometimes people will react differently, but sometimes because we don't know what they've been through or what they're having inside their heads, we might misjudge them or we might be like a little bit harsh to them, you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
so yeah, I'm basically grateful and I do hope that we can get the chance to see more about those type of topics or any kind of topic, that perhaps the general audience will feel like a little bit uncomfortable to it, to raise, like to raise a hand to it and to share a story, but basically like start a conversation to it because even till this day it's like this new era. I sometimes yeah, like I sometimes think about like how divided are we, till this
Yeah,
day. So, and I do think that with films or TV shows or plays, are as I was saying before, is the perfect place to bring those topics to the table so we can get involved to it by watching it and by talk about it, creating like having like this conversations basically. So
absolutely.
yeah, and that was my preaching moment, just saying. And tell me, like in the age of streaming platforms and binge watching, what's your guilty pleasure TV show that you could watch over and over and over and over again?
I don't necessarily have like a guilty pleasure TV show, but it's more of like the genre of reality television.
Okay.
I find that like when I need to turn off my brain, I just love watching reality TV. I think part
Okay.
of it has to do with the fact that like I don't work in that field, so I know nothing about how reality television is funded, how the production works. I have no desire to be on reality TV. So yeah, I love Love is Blind, and just all sorts of different kinds of silly reality TV shows.
I mean, they're crazy. I can agree on that. Yeah. They're super ridiculous sometimes, but yeah. Uh-huh. I like it. Yeah, every now and then I will be watching like one of those just to kind of disconnect my head and just watch something. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. I will say, like in terms of like other shows that I could watch on repeat, there's a show called Castle, that I really like.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the writer that like gets in with the NYPD, and so I could watch that kind of over and over again. I'm a big fan of Criminal Minds. That was a good one. Like all those kind of like crime shows, I really
Mm-hmm.
like. And then I guess for like a comedy, I really like the show Community. Um, so yeah.
Yeah. What in Castle was this actor? I mean, what's his name? Is
I think
Nathan
it's Nathan Fielder. Nathan.
Fillion, something like that, right? I mean, I've
Nathan.
seen it. I mean, yeah. Like every now and then, I will see that he's on a film or something. I want to watch it because he's actually, there's something about it that I like. Like his whole, like the characters he plays. Sometimes that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's like that's like even more badass. You are right now like on badass level 50-ish, something like that.
Oh,
So
I've really upped my badass level through the course of this
yeah,
interview.
you are skyrocketing here, like all the way. And if you weren't an actor, what career path do you think that you would have pursued?
That's a good question. I feel like as a kid, as I said, I wanted to be a real estate agent. So I think I definitely would have maybe pursued that. While I was in university, I kind of found a little bit of like a love for research. So I don't know if maybe I would have kind of gone down that path at all. Um, yeah, I find myself like it was actually really interesting when you asked me to like be in part of this interview because I have a hard time identifying myself as an actor. Like even though we've talked about like that's my passion and that's what I do, like I almost feel like I have kind of pivoted away from like acting and I do have a kind of a career kind of as a producer and hopefully one day a business owner. So I kind of feel like I have kind of pivoted and I'm doing something else, but I still really love acting.
There you go. And talking like a little bit, about the producing thing, tell me where that passion triggered, where in life where like you were like, you know what, I'm just gonna go for producing now.
Yeah, it's a bit of it's an interesting story. So I didn't have any representation at this point. And I was in university and I was like really like down in the dumps because I just felt like I was so far away from my goal of being an actor. Like I had this amazing high school experience where I had an agent and I was auditioning for things and I was booking things and I went into university and now I don't have an agent and I'm not auditioning and I'm not booking anything. I felt like my life was falling apart. And a producer actually came in and did a lecture in one of my university classes. And he was kind of talking about everything that he does and how he gets all of the funding and, how, it's kind of, he's part of the role in deciding cast along with the director and the casting director. And, in terms of like the hierarchy of like who is the boss, the producer is the boss. And I had always thought up until this point that it was kind of like the director that was doing everything. And so it was a good learning experience for me. And then as I was kind of sitting in that lecture, I had this idea of, you know what, if I just learn how to be a producer, I'll become a producer and I'll just cast myself in everything that I produce. And then I've kind of like cheated the system in a way because I don't need an agent and I won't ever have to audition again. And I'll just produce things and act in the things that I produce. And looking back at it, it's funny because I have cast myself in things that I've produced, but like in very small roles because producing is such a huge responsibility and such a huge job. I really admire actors that are, leads in the things that they are producing because I don't know how they manage it. It's like two different parts of your brain that you're activating and kind of it's really just outstanding to me. So yeah, that's kind of where the love of produce that's the idea was based in like I want to act and then somewhere along the journey of learning how to produce I've just like really fallen in love with producing as well.
Okay, I like it. That's super cool. And like, what motivates you? We all have those days that we just want to quit. It's inevitable, happens to all of us. We all been there. So, what is your thing that basically puts you back in? Like whenever you have those days to be like, I need to be back, I need to get back up. It's like, so what is your process here whenever you're having like those thoughts in your mind telling you you should quit?
I think I I think down at the core of it is kind of what we were talking about earlier in the conversation about like the impact that film can have. Um, so, a lot of the stories that I'm drawn to, again, are stories about mental health, you know, are just these kind of stories of folks sharing, their perspective in a way that hopefully, audiences can gain kind of empathy for them and, we can kind of make some impact. So, I think that's one of the things that motivate me is trying to align myself with creators and storytellers that like want to have and not just any impact, like a positive impact on the world. And so yeah, those days where like things are tough or I'm just like, why am I doing this? I remind myself like I'm doing it because I kind of want to like I want to leave the world a little bit better than when I got in it. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not like the smartest person in the world, but I really love film and entertainment. And so I feel like I can maybe use film and entertainment as like my vehicle to, leave a positive change on the world. And I think that aligns with like, outside of what motivates me in like the film industry, but just like what motivates me as a person is like I just kindness. Like I just like the world is a tough place, and I think we just should be kind to each other.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, that's true. Preach. Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end, just don't be a dick.
Yeah.
You know, simple. That was one of the things that an actor told me once. Just don't be a dick. That was
Yeah.
like the best when I asked him like, hey, what would be like the best piece of advice you would give to anyone? Just to be a dick.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And like my last question, so we can all relax, enjoy after an incredible conversation here. So here it is. What do you think that could be the best title for this episode?
That's a good question. I probably should have thought about this one a little bit more. But now that we've had the conversation, I'm just like, okay, what would a good name be? I feel like because I want to think of something really catchy for you, Dan, you know? Give me a second here.
Take your time. I mean, this question usually takes time, so I totally get it.
Yeah. Um, I think maybe like maybe something along the lines of like maybe like positive impact and um being your authentic self with Lauren Saarimaki.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah.
Something, yeah, like something change. I see that happening. Okay. Yeah. So, like, because we have a title.
Thank
There you go. Epic. I mean,
you.
at the end, what can I say? The fact that you are doing it, hey, you're making it happen, basically. That's super badass already, because there are so many people out there who, for whatever reason they have, they are, yeah, like they are like a little bit afraid of taking that step, of going outside the box and just pursuing something from scratch. The fact that you're doing it, the fact that you're making it happen, the fact that you have been showing up multiple times and you're not only acting, you're only producing, and you are trying to do a lot of things here and there. I think that's super cool, and also it's inspirational for everyone out there to be like, hey, she's doing it. She is kicking ass out there. I could do the same thing. So that is incredible, and I do think that I mean that is also one of the reasons why I love interviewing, actors, producers, directors, because at the end you are showing us that it is possible and life can be beautiful if you can actually hear what drives you and basically go for it. So
Yeah, I feel like at the end of the day, like, folks know that the entertainment industry is tough, and I think that deters a lot of people. So if it's really something you want to do, just go for it.
yeah, there you go. That is super cool. I mean, I'm super sure there's people out there who sees you as an inspiration and sees you as someone who is actually getting the job done. So keep doing what you do, and now we discover why you're super badass.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dan.
There you go. And absolutely, I also want to thank those who stayed this whole episode. Thank you so much. Now, on the comments, let us know what you think. If you like it, great. If you didn't like it, meh. Make sure to go follow Lauren on her social media. Let's make her viral. Hashtag Team Lauren. And again, Lauren, thank you so much for making this happen. Keep shining, keep rocking, keep kicking ass, basically. And I'll see you in the next one.
Thanks so much, Dan.
All right.